Week or so since I've done this. Hello, I am Deb Coviello, the Drop-In CEO, and I am so grateful you've joined us on another episode of the podcast where week after week I have the great fortune of meeting amazing people and bring their insights to you. And just know I provide this resource because I truly care about the C-suite leader of today and tomorrow to help you navigate those challenges and, by the way, opportunities with confidence. And if you like this episode, please subscribe, rate, review, and tell others. Share this amazing resource with others. And today it is my honor to share with you my great guest, Lisa Apolinski, who is an international speaker, author, and content coach. She has been featured in Forbes and the New York Times for her marketing expertise. She has several books available, including Persuade with a Digital Content Story, named one of the top content marketing books in the world in her most recent book. And we're going to go there. The greatest personal brand story ever told will be available soon. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you onto the show, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Deb. It's wonderful to be here.
And Lisa, I am excited because actually this is the first time we are meeting, but our good friend and acquaintance, Ben Baker, is an amazing advocate for both of our brands. And he says, you got to talk to Lisa. So I said, okay, Ben, I trust you. This is going to be a great conversation. But I also so curious about her story, the book, The Greatest Personal Brand Story Ever Told. For my audience, you know, I talk about this all the time. You have to stand out. You have to really bring your value forward. And I cannot wait to hear about Lisa's insights. But I'm going to give you the floor first. Share a bit about yourself personally. Again, the personal side, the human side is so important, as well as how did you get to this place and work that you're doing now?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And thank you. So I started my career, I'm going to date myself, over 30 years ago. I remember when the internet first came to being. I remember setting up websites and landing pages, and then also still doing direct mail, like the postcards, if you remember those, and mail merges, doing inside sales calls. And to see the transformation from traditional marketing to digital has been something that has really taught me about foundational elements in communications and connection. And that is what my brand centers around. I am a content coach and creator, and I work with agency owners and small business owners, including CEOs, to help them share their stories so that they attract those right fit clients and they're able to have an authority power, a thought leadership position within their community and really start to give back and have value. I believe that every single person has an area of genius. Sometimes they don't articulate it or they're not sure, and sometimes they want to hide it, and that's okay. I'm here to stand for them and to help them share that area of genius. I started my agency 12 years ago. Again, can't believe it's been 12 years. And when I started my agency, it was around blogging. If you remember back in 2011, 2012, blogging was all the rage. Everything was very new. And I was actually paid for my personal opinion on subject matters within certain organizations. You can kind of think about it as like an advice column or like a Dear Abby column, but it was mine. And I didn't recognize at that point that I was already investing in my personal brand. It was just a natural thing for me to do. I have said this before, I have a big mouth and I'm not afraid to use it. And I was being paid for my opinion. Now, I always made sure that I brought value, but I stood for something. I stood for that connection and sharing my expertise and my experience that I had gained over 30 plus years. And as a content coach and creator, I continue to do that. And this next book, and you can see my 4 books behind me that I've already done. This is my 5th book,
Oh my.
and it is a natural, yeah, again, it's a natural progression in my brand to help others leverage their story and their personal branding so that they have brand legacy and they continue to attract right fit clients. And I use the term right fit Because it's not just attracting everybody, right? There's a certain type of client that is a perfect match to you and your services. And if you had more of those clients or customers that when you wake up in the morning, you're excited to talk to, who listen to you, who follow your advice, who pay on time, these are things that make our lives so much easier and make our work so much more fulfilling. And I want to help CEOs and people who are coming up into the C suite to really decide what it is that they stand for, what they want to be known for, and how to share that with their community so that they're able to attract the success that they're looking for.
So I so support what you're talking about, and I didn't understand this about what do I stand for, and that goes into executive presidents for which people have heard me on this show talk about that I didn't know what that was, and it was so important to stand out. But I guess what is it that prevents CEOs or people up and coming to even, I don't know, recognize the importance of, because again, first of all, I'm giving you my platform to get the word out. Everybody needs to develop a personal brand or putting aside that buzzword. What do you stand for? What prevents people or why aren't more people doing this?
I think it's one of two things. I think, first of all, it's not understanding that being known is not the same as being famous. We're not
Mm.
talking about fame, we're talking about leadership. There's a big difference. I'm not asking you to become the next Kardashian. No, no, no. Not that there's anything wrong with the Kardashians. I'm asking you to be a thought leader and guide others with your knowledge and have a service leadership standpoint. So it's not that you know everything. I've been quoted in the New York Times and I've been quoted in Forbes, and I still know that there's so much more for me to learn in terms of digital marketing. And I'm okay with that. It's understanding that humility and understanding that being known is simply saying, this is something I really want to be able to understand fully. I'm going to do a deep dive into the subject matter. I'm going to share my knowledge with others. And part of my brand and a brand of a lot of my community is being relentlessly helpful. So I'm going to help you whether you like it or not. I'm going to give you a hug and then I'm going to push you. And being able to share that information. And that's the other part of it. I think especially, and I think about my journey because I started in corporate America. I worked for some of the largest companies in the world: American Express, RSM McGladrey, Alcan Packaging. Um, these are very, very large organizations that have millions, if not billions, of revenue a year. And it's very easy in these large corporations to feel that you have to kind of hide your talent, right? Because you don't want someone else to take credit for your stuff and then move ahead of you. And I had to let go of that. I had to understand that if I don't stake myself for something and show my value, even if someone benefits from it, that's okay. I can still give things away for free and help my community because we all rise in that instance. And as you do that, and as you start to decide what you want to be known for and really lean into that, you can attract those people, that community that will have the same purpose and that will work with you. So it unites you. And companies, especially larger organizations, will see that you are attracting resources, vendors, uh, line people, executives, and they're gravitating towards you because you're a natural leader. And they will take notice of that. And as a CEO, again, being known allows you to help guide your industry, to have an impact on not only your industry, but the customers and the clients that you serve.
You bring up a point that I have seen so often, and it's very few leaders that I see put their thought leadership out there because so often when I'm navigating LinkedIn and seeing all these great CEOs, presidents, founders putting stuff out there, it feels like it's just what the marketing department said put out there. And so they just kind of put it out there, and it doesn't necessarily show what they stand for. It's like, hey, we're a leader in sustainability and come to our booth, blah, blah, blah. And it's like they're hiding. We don't know that person. And you hear what people say. We buy products and services from humans, not necessarily the companies. And I think it's a really missed opportunity for us to just be a little show. I'm not going to use the word showy, that's wrong, but recognize your value and being able to articulate it in a way that might be a little bit different, that shows your unique style. I tell this to a lot of people that I coach. Make sure that if you get a thought, write it down. Another crazy thought, write it down. Just start writing down these crazy things, pictures, symbols, etc. Because I promise you, if you don't do it, you're going to forget about it. But if you look at it over time, you say, wow, I keep talking about this, I keep talking about that. That becomes what you stand for and how you can stand out. So I'm so grateful that you find that that's what we need to do with these leaders, is just kind of pull out those unique values and gifts that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, especially for CEOs, it can feel very intimidating that if they step out into the limelight, it means that, people are just going to dump on what they say. And you have to be okay with that. Do it anyway. Lean into that. My book, The Greatest Personal Brand Story Ever Told, which I have right here. Ta-da.
Woo-hoo.
Very exciting.
Yep.
Again, I have 4 books. This is my 5th book. There are going to be people who say that book is garbage, or I don't agree with that. But the vast majority of my community says, oh my God, that was transformative. That was disruptive. And that's what I'm going for. I want to get past the It's not that I'm asking you to do something that's better or cheaper or faster. That's great. But why not really go for a goal? With my book, it talks about the personal branding of Jesus from a marketing and business standpoint.
So let's
Talk
go there.
about talk about controversial, talk about disruptive. And there are a lot of books out there that talk about, sell like Jesus, and do in the boardroom like Jesus. And those are great. I mean, that's great to want to take care of people and want to serve, and fantastic. I wanted to look at the personal branding of Jesus strictly from a business development standpoint.
How unique.
Yeah. There's 2 things about Jesus that I think everyone can agree with. Number 1, if I say the name of Jesus, you know who he is and you know what he stands for. Those are 2 key elements in personal branding, that you're known and you're known for something. And they did it without technology, without phones, without social media, without anything. And they were able to build a personal brand. If nothing else, they were able to build a personal brand. Whether or not you're Christian, whether or not you believe, you know who he is. That's all I care about. And I thought, if there are foundational elements that I can take from that journey and apply it to modern businesses, every modern business would be able to pick something, stand for it, and then build their community around it and make an impact in their industry. There's nothing that should stop you. You might say, well, I don't know how to use social media, or AI is going to ruin the world, or whatever your excuse is. I'm saying set those aside and think about the fundamental aspects of personal brand. And it goes back to my career starting in traditional marketing and moving into digital. There are so many things from traditional marketing that are being brought into the digital space that that lets me know that, number 1, there are still fundamentals that make the foundation. And number 2, people always buy from people they know, like, and trust. That is not going to change. So how do we show up where people can trust us in a world where you can have deep fakes? AI can make stuff up. You can send out anything. You can claim to be anything. And there are a lot of people in a lot of places that claim all sorts of stuff. And I agree. But how can we, with our digital footprint, show that we are what we are known for? And we do that through communication, through our content.
You talk about marketing fundamentals, way back when you used to send mailers. What and those are relevant today. So, what is it about fundamental marketing from the past that's relevant today? Because, first of all, while we're providing a conversation and content for my audience and your audience as well, I am forever on a journey of how do I get the drop in CEO, the person that helps C suite leaders of today and tomorrow navigate with confidence because I simply don't want you to struggle as much and I'm your support system. I am trying to get that word out, what I stand for, but I also want to learn from you and your expertise. And if people can go away and do it themselves, to your point, giving it away for free. But at the end of the day, we just want to help people be able to have more impact. So, what are
Absolutely.
some marketing fundamentals that we should be thinking about or leverage?
So the first is community. That's the first one I'm going to talk about. When we think about community, it's bringing together like-minded individuals for a common purpose. That's what the definition of community is. You have to understand your common purpose and you have to understand who are right fits within your community. Those are two key things. The third element is community isn't about you. It isn't about your brand. And I like to talk about brand loyalty. And I actually did a webinar on this yesterday. So if you think about brand loyalty, I am a Hilton owner. I am, I have the rewards points and all that stuff, but it's transactional, right? I spend money with Hilton and I expect for the money that I spend with them that I will get a certain status. I'll get free upgrades. I'll get water when I walk in the hotel. I'll get free parking, free Wi-Fi. That's great, but it's transactional, right? Now, I actually have spoken to and have had conversations with Chris Nassetta. He is the CEO and president of Hilton. Since I'm having conversations with him, how do you think my view of Hilton has changed? It's changed a lot. It's no longer transactional. There is someone that I am connected to in my community where I'm like, yes, I like the Hilton brand. And yes, I enjoy the perks, but I also like Chris. Chris is a great guy. I would love to support him. By supporting him, I am supporting the brand, but it's that human element of connection. If I didn't know Chris and someone from Marriott came and said, hey, I can give you all those things and I can give you a little bit more. And, no offense, but Hiltons and Marriott's are by and large very close to each other in city settings. Would it, could I be lured away by a different brand if I stayed within that transactional element? Absolutely. We're human. We're going to go, oh, shiny new object over there. You're going to give me a few more things. I'm going to go that way. It's the nature of the beast. If we move away from community and we move into that brand loyalty, that very transactional interaction, we lose that connection. And that's what community affords us, is that connection. We've had it before. Um, you know, if you think back to, and again, I'm going to date myself. If you remember Sears, I
I
remember
do.
conversations that my parents would tell me about Sears, how they could go in and talk to a certain employee that they knew to be able to have a conversation around a piece of hardware or a tool that they purchased. They had this connection within the the store, a local store. And I think if companies stop having those connections, that human element disappears and then it just becomes transactional based. So that's the first one, is that connection and community. The second one is, again, moving into the idea of being human. Every time I think about this, I always go back to one story in my head that happened to me when I worked for a larger company, and um, I was manning the phones. We had to take turns answering phones, which was great. It's a great learning experience and talking to actual customers and people. We were encouraging people to come to our booth, and we had passes for the trade show for them to come to our booth. And I got a call, and it was a older male who was having trouble with registering because, again, new to internet, new to all that stuff. And I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. I will help you, and I will go through and do this for you. And while I was filling out his form, having a conversation with him, asking him about where he was located, what the weather was, how things were going for his business. What I didn't know is this was the CEO of one of our largest prospects that we had been trying to get into the booth for 4 years. 4 years. And he was registering, and he's like, "Oh my God, you've been so great." And I said, when do you think you're going to be by the booth? I would love to just meet you in person, and, maybe I can take you for a cup of coffee, just because I had such a wonderful time talking to him.
Mhm.
And he was like, "Absolutely. This is the day I'm going to be there." I mean, we made an appointment. So just by being human and having that interaction and going down to that relationship level, I was able to get a prospect in. And I didn't know who he was. I wasn't planning on selling him anything. I simply wanted to be helpful. I wanted to be relentlessly helpful. And by doing that, he came in, he became one of our largest customers just because
Yeah.
of that interaction. And I was supposed to go to lunch with somebody, and he was making fun of me behind me as I was doing this because I was sitting there chatting, and he was like, "Come on, let's go." And then when he saw the name, I mean, like, he was like, and I didn't know why he was all freaked out. And then I found out later, you got this individual to come into our booth. We can't get in the door to see him as a salesperson. And I'm like, well, are you talking to him like a human being, or are you talking to him like a dollar sign? That's a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, this topic of just starting with relationships where the recent marketing gurus say, start shooting out emails to everybody because you're going to get a point whatever percent ROI on that and getting somebody to actually get a call. If this, I'm going to just get on a pedestal right now. Anybody that's opens a LinkedIn communication with me to say, I do X, Y, and Z for this type of company, one, two, three. Immediately, I have a rebuttal. I said, I invest in relationships first. Had you started from just getting to know me, I might have said, you're an amazing company. I want to talk to your
Right.
CEO and bring them on my company. But instead,
Yeah.
you went for the transaction.
Yeah.
The other
And they
quick,
went for what was important to them,
I know nothing
not
about
what
me.
was important to you.
They don't know
Yeah.
anything about me, for which maybe,
Yeah.
like I said, I could have brought them on the podcast and gotten far more business than just trying to get
Absolutely.
my one bit of business. And the other story, and this is on the negative side, and I
Mhm.
don't care, IHG, Holiday Inn, had a negative experience, started reaching out on social media. I was a rewards customer with them. And mind you, I've been at others since, and they're great, but I had a negative experience. And because they're not getting back to me, they are not respecting me. All I want to do is have a human connection. I'm not looking for any compensation. I just want to have an opportunity to say what went wrong with the service that I experienced, the transaction. But because they continually avoid me, even though I've been kind and respectful, the converse happens. The brand loyalty's
Well,
gone. Even the transaction, no human
right.
connection. That's it.
Right. And then you're no longer the brand advocate. There's no longer that community. That brings up another story that I have. During COVID, I would buy my German Shepherds frozen stuff from Chewy.com. I love Chewy.com. I don't really use them anymore because my smaller dog has a very different diet. But I was buying raw food, and this was during COVID, and they were shipping the food, and something happened, and it was held at a warehouse for a week. And this is raw food, raw food. When it got to me, it was obviously a stinky hot mess. And I called and, let them know, and they refunded my money. And then I was like, I've worked, I have an MBA with a concentration in IT management. I know how to code. Understand how systems work, and CRMs. I bet you there's a way where if FedEx or UPS or whatever can't ship out the food right away, because again, everything was backed up, there's got to be a way to alert the customer service person where they see that it's going to be delayed. It's a raw food item, which you could code in, and then alert the customer service person who would then call you and say, "Hey, um, there's delays. I'm going to cancel this because by the time you get it, it's going to be garbage." And it would probably not only have a better customer experience, but save Chewy millions of dollars a year in lost product that they can't control. And I reached out to the CIO and I told him, "Hey, there's got to be a way you can do this and allow the customer service rep to see that and go back to the customer and have a conversation and have a better customer experience and save you money. And let me know how it goes." They were so appreciative. They made a bag, like to put your laptop in and stuff with my company logo on it. That's what they sent me. I was like, "Holy crap," and I still have it and I use it. And I think about them every time I pull it out. So, who do you think, if my friends are like, "Oh, I gotta order food," who do you think I recommend?
You know,
Ta-da!
people just forget it's oh God, we could go on and on about,
Oh,
it's just the
absolutely.
transaction versus human connection. Again, before we jumped on here, and if anybody's out there and read my newsletter or my blog post, I had a injury and it was obviously not terrible, but in the moment you're kind of vulnerable. So I wrote about it today, and I had to go for a test yesterday just to see was there anything really bad, or Deb, your pride has been hurt, basically. And I will tell
Yeah,
you that during that time, technicians can be just a transaction, lay down, hold still. We're going to take a picture, and here's the exit or to the waiting room. And instead, the person talked it up with me and wanted to understand how did I get the injury? And oh, that's terrible. And oh, what's going to happen next? And when are you going to get the results? Made what could have been a terrible transaction human. And not that I ever want to go
yes,
there again, but I can say, okay, I may be going to trust the medical system again because they've returned to kindness versus just a
right,
transaction.
right. Absolutely, absolutely.
So you must be
And
so, go ahead. Yeah.
and we live in an age now where you can find the CEOs or the customer service VP or whatever for every single organization. I mean, before, for me to actually talk to the CIO at Chewy or to talk to Krishna Setta, I would have never gotten there. And to be honest, when I was getting emails during COVID from, the leader from American Airlines and all of these people, I reached out to them to say, "Hey, I really appreciate you sending this and sending it personally. And maybe it was a mass email, but I just want you to know that it had an impact and I'm glad you're doing this. And here are some ideas." And Chris was one of the people who responded. The other people did not, which was unfortunate because again, it's an opportunity. Um, I don't know if you know who Mark LeBlanc is. Mark LeBlanc is one of the top coaches. He is a National Hall of Fame speaker. He was the president of the National Speakers Association. Smart guy, so incredibly talented on the stage, and he does coaching, and he's a friend of mine. And what he talks about, and I love this, if you're looking to move the needle for relationships, one a day, one a day, one a day, like taking a vitamin. Do one connection a day, whether it's to reach out to a former colleague, to reach out to a former client, to reach out to a prospect that you've been putting off because you feel intimidated, one a day. And if you do that and you're only focused on one, and I know some people are like, "Oh, but I want to send out 50,000 emails." Yeah, that's great, but you've just alienated 49,990 people by doing that. If you do one a day, it forces you to be personal. "Hey, I really liked your profile and I thought this was really interesting," or, you know, "I love this post that you gave about this subject, and I felt intimidated to say anything on it, but have you considered blah blah blah."
You never
Again,
know.
you're standing for something, you're being known, and you're focused on connection.
So, if we had to bring this in a little bit, because you and I have been just going back and forth and swapping stories about what to do and what not to do, I do want to make sure that we give enough time to the personal brand story ever told. What was like maybe the most impactful, like thought leadership of your own or chapter in this book that I want you to share some insight? I want people to go out, and it's coming out in May, so I'm not sure when this is going to come out, but very shortly after your book comes out, this is going to air as well. The greatest personal brand story ever told. What's your favorite chapter insight that maybe you want to share with my community?
Well, if there was a chapter I'm going to pick and it goes back to my content creation, it's storytelling, the art and science and the impact of storytelling. And I've written a book about it. Right there. Sorry, I flipped. Um, it's this idea of you can certainly tell people features and benefits. You can certainly do that. But what if you weaved in a story that illustrated beyond the features and benefits and move them to a future state of success? And that's part of what I coach on as well. So many organizations, and again, it goes back to this transactional thought process that if I just list my features and benefits, you'll get it. You'll be able to see, how those features and benefits can get you to a future state. It drives me crazy. And it's those spam, I don't want to say spam emails, but those emails that you get on LinkedIn or that just say, would you like to buy purchase a list of 500 CMOs? No, no, I do not. But it's this concept of I can just make this very superficial, very transactional, and I can just list the things we do. If I can take your competitor and switch their name in, your content has no value. Instead, what if you illustrated with a current client who has a similar problem? Because that's why people are hiring you. They're hiring you to solve some sort of a problem. If I'm looking at the problem and I have a client who I helped guide to solve their problem, couldn't I talk about that person and talk about with these proprietary things or with these tools or with this certain type of expertise, the client was able to future success point. And then not only am I showcasing some features and benefits because there's some in there, but I'm also helping my audience relate to the story. It has relevancy to them, and they can actually picture themselves in the story, in the conversation, working with me to get to that future success point. I'm inspiring them to a future state of being.
Yeah, and
Storytelling
yeah.
has the ability to do that. And it's memorable. It's memorable. If I give you a list of features and benefits, I'm going to forget 90% of them. I mean, no offense, but with everything that we're being bombarded with, and I'll speak personally, I, it's like I can't retain anything anymore. And if I have a story, I can think back to the details of the story and I can remember things. And what I always tell my clients is it's not really the process of what you do. I mean, no offense. It is and it isn't. But for your clients, most of them don't care how the donuts are made. They just want to know the donuts are going to show up at their party, beautiful and edible, and they don't have to, it's one less thing they have to think about. That's what they're paying you for. They're paying you to help them get to that future state of success. They're not paying you for the features and benefits that you're doing. It's the results of working with you. That's what they care about. When we focus on features and benefits, we never get to the results because we're talking about ourselves. My company can do this. I can do that. My services include.
Yeah. It's gotta change, and so that's why I'm so grateful that you are putting out this piece of work. You are so aligned to my brand. I try to elevate people by helping them, 1, break through their personal barriers, limitations, mindset issues, but also you've gotta find a way to stand out, and I will promise you, if you can share with people, what do you stand for and tell story around it, you will transfix people, you will take them to a different place, you will make them present, and time will stand still a little bit, and they will again, I don't know who said it, but they will remember how you made them feel and you brought them to a different place. So learn the art of storytelling, a key chapter in Lisa's book. I'm going to give you the floor one last time to talk to my community, tell one last story, and how best can they connect with you.
Sure. So I always like to end with a moral. And this is true even with my formula that I have for writing persuasive stories. And if there's one thing I could leave with the audience is this: no matter where you are in your digital journey, whether it's personal branding, content creation, digital marketing, look at it as a climb with no summit. Wherever you are, you still have 100% to go. So that means just take the next step. Just take the next step. It's all about taking that action and taking the next step and moving the needle. And if you'd like to, you can, number one, get on my VIP list so that you have early access to my book, The Greatest Personal Brand Story Ever Told, by going to my website, which is 3dogwrite.com, which is the number 3 dog, write like write with a pen, WRITE.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That is where I share a lot of my content, and I have a newsletter. You can sign up for my newsletter, and you can reach out to me at lisa@3dogwrite.com, and I'd love to have a conversation. I love having conversations about this, and really learning more about someone's journey and being able to connect with them and then see how I can support them. And I got to tell you, Deb, I got up at 6 o'clock this morning and I saw your subject line for your email, your newsletter in my inbox, and I opened it. I hadn't even gotten out of bed and I was reading your blog. And I was like, oh my God, she's a curler. This is so cool. I gotta ask her a bunch of questions about it. So it works. It totally works.
I shared a personal story and then there was a lesson at the end, but I wanted to be
Yeah.
totally transparent, human. My pride was hurt, but I will heal. Lisa, you've been an amazing guest. Shout out again to Ben Baker for suggesting we
Yes.
talk. We're so aligned. I am grateful that you are now part of my community and you dropped in on the podcast. I do want to wish you well and continue success.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to continuing our conversation.